Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever in the world you are connecting from. It is great to have one more conversation about all the things that are happening in this new reality of work. And I am very happy to have, two new friends, online friends, Professor Chris and Professor Anna. And we had a
Everybody,
conversation.
good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are connected.
Somebody has the, all right, awesome. Somebody had the my sound coming through. All right, back on track. We had a conversation last time about leadership and post-COVID in the GCC region, and today we're going to be talking about disruptive innovation. So one thing that I want to ask you is that if you have any questions, please post them on the chat. Please let us know where you are connecting from in the world. We are curious to know where you are. We want to know where you are. And that way you can also connect with people from other areas and you can network. The one reason why we do this on LinkedIn Live all the time is because I love the idea of providing people an avenue, an opportunity for them to connect with each other, to talk to each other, because the idea here is not just having a conversation with our amazing thought leaders and panelists, but also to have a conversation among yourself so that you can interact with each other and whatnot. So please feel free to post in the chat your questions and comments and whatnot. So let me begin before getting into the topic of the day. I do want to say this. This is a hard time for everybody. I know everybody's getting really fed up and sick about talking, all things coronavirus. We continue to see a lot of things out there about, coronavirus this, coronavirus that, and people are getting really fed up. Now, while I understand that, one thing that we can't dismiss is the fact that there are many people in pain, many people suffering, not only because they have lost loved ones, but also because they are suffering the financial consequences of all the things that are happening. And one thing that I want to ask you to do is to make sure that, number one, if you are one of those who is suffering or in pain because of all the things that are going on right now, please know that you are not alone. Ask for help. Go to others. Many people have been there before. Go to your friends, go to your community, to your family members, and ask for help if you need help. If you need to talk to somebody, just reach out to those around you. There's no weakness in asking for help. There's a strength in being vulnerable and asking others for support. So if you feel alone, if you feel that you're in pain, if you feel that you're suffering, please make sure that you ask your network, either friends, family, co-workers, for support. Reach out to them. Now, if you know of some of your colleagues, friends, family members that they need you and they haven't reached out to you, but you know that they need you, please reach out to them and lend them a hand, talk to them, provide support, provide help, be there for them. This is the time when we become more humans than perhaps in any other time in history, because we're all going through this pain and all this suffering and all this tragedy. So make sure that if you need help, you ask for help. And if you can provide help to others, you offer it. Don't wait to be asked. Just offer that help, because many people are sort of, shouting inside of themselves, but they are not able to put that voice out there. So reach out to others and offer your help. This is a great time to become more and more human. So I'm hoping that you stay strong. And all right, let's get in the conversation today about disruptive innovation in uncertain times. First question that I want to ask Chris and Anna, the basic one: is it even possible to do innovation in times of crisis? Is it even possible to do innovation in times of crisis?
Prof, you want to start or should I? Prof, I think that you are muted.
Chris, you're muted.
Buddy, and which means good day. So you could be in any part of the world, and we wish you well. The question is very pertinent to the current context, and I think the most opportune moment to do innovation is when things are down. When the deck and the cards are down is when the human brain, the human resilience, the human spirit rises up beyond our imagination, and we come out with those path-breaking ideas. In fact, the opposite is equally true. When things are going hunky-dory, when everything is laid back, the brain tends to take a rest. But this is not the time for the brain to take rest. And imagine, not just one of us, it's a community of people who are looking at a common enemy. And imagine the power of collaborating across countries, across domains, across disciplines, coming together as one big global family to address this. I think you can't get a better moment than this to be innovative. I leave the rest of the comments to my colleague, Dr. Anna.
Totally agree, Prof, as always. So I think that we are always thinking, in a similar manner. Let me put it this way. Usually when the hard times comes, our creativity is born. And from that perspective, and curiosity, because we need to solve problems in a new manner. And this is how we can define intelligence, coping with something that was unexpected, and we need to live in a new norm and approach solving the problem, the challenge, in a new manner. So I think that just to answer that question, and of course the answer is yes, definitely. It's not that, everything has been invented and we are going through everything and everything has been developed. Simple reason being, everybody is waiting for that vaccination, right? That is yet to come, that it will be the solution. But I think that we should start from a very basic thing in that discussion, defining two things. What is innovation and what is disruptive innovation, what that disruption means, okay? So what can we do and how can we call the innovation? I think that this is the modern meaning of the new idea, how we can name the creative thoughts, new imagination. It's in a form of a device or a method. That is how this innovation can be described. As well, this is viewed from the perspective of applying something that is a better solution or meeting new requirements of unarticulated needs or just existing market needs. So that is very straightforward, that we need to innovate because we are meeting something that we have not met before, something that was unexpected, unprecedented, and we need to approach the new norm and embrace it, right? So that's why what is happening, that disruptive factor comes into the place. So what we need to understand by this disruptive innovation, and I found the simplest idea and the simplest definition. Of course, my students, this is the first source for them. What they will do, they will go to Wikipedia, okay? So let me quote straightforward the definition from Wikipedia, which says, this is an innovation that creates a new market. Now we are not talking about creating a new market, but, and this is very important, value network, and eventually disrupts an existing market and a value network, displacing established market-leading firms, products, and alliances. And Enrique, you started with something amazing. You said, like, I want to introduce to you my new friends, okay? And then following what you just said, don't hesitate, don't be afraid to reach out to people. We are creating new solutions, we are creating new contacts, we are establishing new network, and we are thinking from a completely different perspective, from a completely different angle. There are new friendships, and suddenly the next door neighbor who was somebody that you didn't know, that you didn't notice because you've been too busy working, when you pass that person on the corridor, on the street, even though everybody's wearing the face mask, you know that the person is smiling, and that's amazing. That's why I strongly believe that the innovation is happening and will be happening. We do not need to reinvent the wheel, but we need to find the solution, how to make things faster or in more effective manner. Simple reason being, people needed desks and chairs. How many approaches to how to create your home office you've seen? And suddenly everything clicked. Why people, they buy that much toilet paper, right? You've seen these crazy ideas, right? So I think nothing more is needed to be added here.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And one thing that I want to touch upon is this idea of collaboration. One of the things that I have been talking about, for quite a while, but now with more emphasis than ever before, is how we need to unleash radical innovation in the world to solve the very dramatic, complex, and common problems that we have around the world. But to be able to do that, we must rely on global collaboration. If we're not able to collaborate with each other, we won't be able to solve these problems. And you said it before, Chris. You said, we gotta tap into the collective intelligence of everybody to solve these problems. So I want to dig a little deeper into that, but I want to get very specific about how can we operationalize, if you will, how can we make this collaboration happen when very often inside organizations they don't even collaborate across silos. So how can we even think about collaboration across companies, across countries, when inside those organizations there are still so many barriers for collaboration? So what would be, I know you guys don't like playbooks, you don't like recipes, but if you have some suggestions on how to implement these levels of collaboration, what would those suggestions be for organizations, for leaders, and for the just regular citizen that has no a position of authority and yet they can make something happen in their organization?
Prof, we want to start?
Let me put it this way. First of all, we should think of the collaborating solutions like crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, right? Co-creating, that I know a little bit, you know a little bit, and together we can create a history, okay? I think that none of the inventors or none of the owners of the big MNCs now started completely single-handed. That is one thing. Second thing, what we need to assume that you rightly mentioned that the distress of COVID is followed by the rolling ball of the economic crisis, okay, that is impacting many. So it's not a matter of collaboration whether I want to, it's a matter of collaboration I need to, because alone I'm too weak, but together we can manage. I cannot put money for R&D myself, but together with my biggest competitor, I can do it, okay? So usually what is happening, people are merging and people are collaborating just to fight a bigger enemy, okay? And usually competitors are joining their efforts to combat the common enemy. That common enemy, now it's a pandemic and the economical distress. So what we can do, simply think of solutions that, let's put the weapon aside, let's try to figure out what we can do together. So for example, I have a know-how and you have technology. So together we can do something that neither you nor I can do by myself.
That is fantastic. And it's so powerful that when we get to that level of saying, you know what, Anna, you are my competitor under normal circumstances, but neither you nor I are under normal circumstances right now. So instead of having having your company perish and my company perish, why don't we collaborate and find something that keeps us both alive in the long term, right? I think that's beautiful and powerful, and I hope that we can really embrace that mindset. Chris, I think you wanted to add something to that as well.
Yeah, let me add some science behind it so that for those of you who are watching this, this will give you the confidence of what Dr. Anderson said. Now, if you go back in time, we all have heard of this famous or rather infamous term, survival of the fittest. And very often we get the meaning of that term wrong. We think it's fighting between ourselves, competing with ourselves for scarce resources, and then winning. That is wrong, actually. The whole perception of that is wrong, because survival of the fittest was humanity's survival in the context of other animals and other species. And the biological reason behind it is we have a larger size brain, proportionately larger brain in comparison to other species, which is why we survive. Now, here's the absolute good news. We have not only survived, we have thrived. And this is all research, academic research evidence. We have thrived. What is thriving? Thriving is getting better and better. Thriving is flourishing. Thriving is developing. Thriving is growing. And here's the reason behind human thriving. Human thriving is not an individual's effort. Human thriving is a collective effort of collaboration, cooperation, and contribution to the community. They call it the 3 C's of community, and that has now been validated. For those who are skeptical about this, you can read Skein's book, which is about, he's got a tongue-in-cheek title for it. He says, Survival of the Nicest. And what he talks about is the altruistic nature of human beings to collaborate and help each other. Dr. Anna put it very nicely. Rather than both of us dying as competitors, it might be a good idea to put our weapons outside and then collaborate as a joint force. Now, how this works is there are open source platforms today. And, in the beginning of this 21st century, there was some very exciting stuff that came on. There's a business model on it. For those who want it, they can do research. It's called Wikinomics. So Wikinomics is nothing but economics, Wikipedia style. How do you do it? And I'll give you examples from this. Yeah, it's economics, Wikipedia style. So the way you do it is, and the best example I can think of is one of the world's largest FMCG companies, which is Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble is a company that has driven itself to growth by R&D. And in 2005, when they looked at the balance sheets, they were doing pretty good, but their growth rate in terms of innovation was very slow. So the then CEO, who also happened to come back again as a CEO, John F. Lafley, decided to radically disrupt the conventional R&D process. He called it C plus D. C stands for connect, and D, of course, stands for develop. And for the first time in the history of this traditional company, they threw open all the challenges that they had on an open source and invited the entire world to find solutions. And you had ideas coming from all kinds of people, from students to professors, to researchers, to industrialists, to engineers. And guess what? Between 2005 and 2012, the number of innovations that Procter & Gamble had were much larger than all the 85, 90 years put together. So that's the power of human collaboration. Here's my last thought. It's called the wisdom of crowds, which is the science of tapping into the collective wisdom of people. And we know this. If those of us who have watched Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, we know that the collective audience, when you ask the audience, it's not the intelligence of one person, it's the collective intelligence of all the other audience, which makes the answer much more relevant. And, the best example they give in innovation, predictive markets works on that same model. When you share, secrets of stocks and trades, you collectively get a better output than individually doing it. So there's plenty of evidence. The world has not really gone to that reset mode of understanding the power of human collaboration. Thanks to COVID, we now are forced to look at these disruptive options, and one of them is the power to collaborate, which is already embedded into us.
That is very powerful, and I want to follow up on that question on that comment with another question. But before, I want to once again acknowledge our audience for being here with us today, connecting from literally all over the world. And if you have any questions, well, please let us know, if you haven't let us know yet, where you are connecting from. And if you have any questions, please post it on the chat. I'm gonna try to bring as many of those questions as possible to our conversation with Anna and Chris. Over my career, I always have sort of dreamed with changes happening bottom up. Not because I am rebellious against authority, but because I think the authority always is like one-sided, and when we promote changes bottom up, we're doing so through the wisdom of the crowds, because it's the majority of people pushing in one direction and not just one person. But I have also realized that in organizations, these changes bottom up, they require champions at the leadership level, because otherwise, it's difficult for you to get together with 100 people in your organization and say, we're going to protest for us to collaborate more. That's not going to happen. I wish, but that's not really going to happen. So the question becomes, how can we not only instill, but perhaps, promote this idea of disruptive innovation through collaboration at the leadership level? Because I think, at the level of workers, we know that for us to do better, we need to collaborate. But very often the bottleneck or the obstacle is at the leadership level. So what can we tell them? How can we incentivize them? How can we, empower them, if you will, even though they have already the power to say, hey guys, you know what? I'm going to cross down the aisle and go to my colleague who is in another silo in this organization for us to collaborate. Moreover, I'm going to pick up the phone and call my peer in my competitor company for us to say, hey guys, what are you doing in there? This is what we're doing in here. How can we make each other better? So any thoughts on that end? Anna, Chris?
Rob, up to you.
Yeah. So, it's a very interesting question. With due respect to all the leaders and the chief honchos, the first thing that they need to do, and this is very counterintuitive, is for them to shut up. You want to bring about radical disruption, radical collaboration at the middle and the junior levels, guys at the top, just shut up. And I'll tell you why. Because the moment you are saying something, the rest of us are saying, okay, the big boss has said this, I need to throw in that line. So the first thing is tell them, radically innovate, guys. I'm getting out of this place. You guys come back with the solution. This is the deadline, and then get out. And then give them that power, empower them. I'll give you a couple of examples. Now, Pixar is one of the world's most famous and most successful movie companies. They have broken all laws of probability and statistics because every movie they make becomes a super hit. The reason it becomes a super hit is because of radical collaboration and radical confrontation in the nice sense of the word. So all of us together create the movie. I've got an idea which I think is great because that's my idea. You come back the next day along with a group of people and say, that is stupid. It can be made better. And we continue this process of improvisation, each of us building on each other's ideas. And the final output that comes will probably have nothing relevant to how we started, but the final output is world beating. So I think critically, the bosses, the top, especially in hierarchical structures, a good idea would be for the boss to just move away, vanish from the scene, empower people to do what they have to do, and then you'll find the collaboration. Another good corporate example is a company called IDEO. Some of you may have heard of it. It's one of the world's most admired design companies. And what they do is, again, very interesting. Apart from, the common equity between everybody, there are no higher-ups, no lower downs. Everybody's at equal level, and they collaborate. The next interesting thing they do is they have a diverse portfolio of people who work together on a common project. So one of the common things which made them very famous was a shopping cart. To design a shopping cart, you had a biologist, you had a rocket scientist, you had a literature, you had a poet, you had all kinds of people, and each of them come with their own perspectives to give you shape to that idea. So I think radical innovation is done with equitable, distribution of power, which means there's no boss, and you have that. And then you have a diversified portfolio of ideas from diverse people coming together. And you find it's awesome when each of them look at it from their perspective and then come back with a final product.
Love it.
For those who are watching, they can watch YouTube a brilliant video called the Shopping Cart Video, IDEO. It's 21 minutes, but it gives you an idea about how radical collaboration happens.
The shopping cart video. I love that. Anna, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure, definitely. Three things. First of all, Prof, I love, when you're being so senior, you are telling that these bosses should shut up. Oh, I love that moment. Second thing, it is before they will keep their mouth zipped, I think that they should empower, enable, and allow people to brainstorm and to think, to mandate them that creativity. Okay, because of course, the more open the leadership, the biggest platform for creativity, right? Because let's say what Jack Ma said, that I want to have people that are better at everything than myself, and I just let them work. Okay, and usually the big CEOs, they are following that pattern. So I think that it exactly reflects what you're talking about. Second thing, in the time of a need, they could be, let's say, like observers during the brainstorming. Okay, so they should follow the proper brainstorming phases when people are just throwing up the ideas and they are not commenting, they're only taking notes. And when the people are out of the ideas and they can't figure out anymore, okay, then we just make a break and start discussing it. Okay, not validating, not saying this is a nonsense, but the brainstorming give us the capacity to interact with the ideas, right? We are coming back to the concept of collaboration. You say something, I said something, and you ignite my thinking towards another way, and you are opening the door in my mind. And then due to this collaboration, more innovation happens, okay? So let's say, first of all, to zip their mouths, allow people to be creative. Second, become the silent observers, but observers like the note takers. That's it, nothing more. Okay, not observers in terms of granting credit. Good, this is kind of judging stuff. Okay, because that will not work definitely. And the third, I wanted to share with you a friend of mine, Dr. Marie from the Singapore campus. She shared on her LinkedIn profile something that I literally loved, and that was the article by Forbes. And work from home might prove that managers are no longer necessary.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I love that reading. It was like just a few minutes reading. And just to wrap up very quickly what was said in that paper, that has been written by the manager mid-level manager, who has found the very true that before he needed to follow up, cross-check what the people are doing, try to encourage people to do something, and their productivity was on that level. And he was interacting with these people on a daily basis, and he was overflown with the emails. Now they are working from home, okay? And there are no daily meetings. They are not interacting that often. And to his surprise, the productivity of the team, it is same, equal, or slightly higher. So each means that he's not needed there. So now the managers, they need to reinvent themselves, because in that difficult home office situation, usually the role of the mid-manager, it is, focused on being the person who is chasing you, who is making that, small ticks on the to-do list. And then following up, he's like, the policeman, or the guardian in the prison. And that is something that people don't want at all.
Yeah.
So there were a few suggestions what to do to be a great leader and to be a great manager during these difficult times. So what it has been said there, just to add value to the team that's, it's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So first of all, to become an advocate and a troubleshooter, okay? Instead of becoming the troublemaker, you need to do this, you need to do that, that is pending, why this is not done? You should be the one who should leave the policy of an open door and ask people, tell me, how can I help you?
Yeah.
How can I solve your problems? How I can ease your pain over an every day? And then become the medium, because he's interacting with each team members that might not be interacting with one another.
Yeah.
So he sees it from the bird's eye perspective, and he's like the middleman in between. He should pass the information from one person to the other. And for example, he can facilitate the problem and the challenge of one person by addressing it to another, and at the same time asking, hey, how about I will help you now? And following up with another person, how can I help you solving your challenge?
Yeah.
And that it will be highly appreciated because in that moment, people will remember that one.
Yeah.
To my surprise in that reading, I found as well that people, they need that manager nowadays to become the cheering section. And really, we need that cheerful person who brings a little bit of optimism. So let me give you an example of Accenture. It's a company where my husband works. On the weekly basis, they are having small meeting, 30 minutes catch up, that they are not talking about work. They're talking about, my husband is baking bread, my husband is doing something, and somebody's playing guitar, etc., just to show the human face.
Yeah.
And to people's surprise, for example, to bring kids to these 30 minutes, and suddenly you see a person from a completely different angle. Hey, he's a father too. Wow, she is a multitasking mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a completely different perspective to the, let's say, future work.
Yeah.
And what was there as well, it is the caring section.
Yeah.
If you are asking a question, how can I help you? It should be genuine. It shouldn't be, oh, it's okay, so I will help you, right? and then nothing happens. It should be really solving the problems, not only business related, but of the private matters, because now we are facing, that equilibrium, that balance. It's very fragile nowadays.
Yeah.
And what, Enrique, you mentioned in the beginning, don't be afraid to reach out predict that person might have these problems and try to act in advance. Be proactive.
Yeah.
Believe me, people will never forget it. They will be with you forever. And you need to remember, there is one super powerful phrase. Remember, people are not living organizations. People are living models.
No, absolutely. And that's, I think there's definitely a powerful connection between collaboration, innovation, and of course the role of leaders, based on our conversation. There's one idea that I wrote about it for the first time, I think like 4 or 5 years ago, which is the idea of being radically open-minded. By the way, to continue using your word of radical thinking and radical innovation. And what radical open-mindedness means is that you have to be open not just to other ideas that are aligned with the way you see the world, but you gotta be open to ideas that contradict what you think. Because if you're open to those ideas, that doesn't mean that they are true. It means that just being open to them, you're open to changing the ways you see the world. And that's something that we need more of today. Like just the very concept of leadership. I mean, for how long have we thought that leaders are there to motivate people, to tell them what to do, to tell them how to do it? And when you come to one of those leaders that are, thinking in that way, and you tell them, well, you know what, the role of leadership is evolving, and now you are becoming more of a coach, you're becoming more of a friend, you're becoming more of somebody who is removing obstacles from the way of people and let them do their work in the way they want to do their work. That contradicts the very concept of leadership as we knew it, 50, 60, 100 years ago. So when leaders are open to those ideas, I think they can get to a very, very powerful place of incentivizing collaboration, incentivizing innovation, but also being one more team member in the team. We got a few questions here. One of them is, and I'm gonna frame it. We got a few minutes, but I'm gonna frame it in the context of HR, and it is the 2 or 3 things that HR should do to be seen as innovators adding value to the bottom line. 2 or 3 things that HR needs to do to be seen as innovator adding value to the bottom line. So if you can briefly touch on 2 or 3 things, and then we move on to the next question. Chris, Anna?
Prof, you want to take that? And then I'll build on it if you want.
Prof, please start. I think that I have too much time last time.
No one.
Your turn.
So HR, like any other department, has to be innovative. So the first thing they can do, you see, again, I'm just linking it with the concept that you spoke about just before you asked this question, Enrique. Not all of us are individually smart, but collectively, each one of us can collectively make a much better decision. So when HR is grappling with ideas, the best thing for them is to go back to the people and say, what are the things that you think we can do to make it better? And people will come back with brilliant ideas. So that's number 1. Number 2, you're a HR head or a HR leader. You feel that probably you need to have all the answers. Not really. One of the key tenets of a great leader is the ability for radical candor, as they call it. Radical candor or radical frankness is the ability for a leader to accept all kinds of inputs, both negative and positive. And the best example of radical candor is one of the world's most successful investment gurus, a guy which many of us may be familiar, Ray Dalio from Bridgewater Associates. And his remarkable leadership success is because he has the ability to get even his lowest level employee to criticize him when he goes wrong. So that's the third point, what you call radical candor. There's a science behind it. It's, we're all taught as leaders to be persuasive, to be influencing. But there's the opposite of that, which is equally important, which is being persuadable. A great leader is also somebody who is persuadable, which means I'm not rigid in my thoughts. I'm not stuck in my ideas, but I'm open to radical ideas. And the moment you start opening up, trust me, magic happens. Because The moment a leader says, I'm not the one who has all the answers, but together we can find great answers. I think that's the big message I want to give to any HR professional or leader, that open up to the community and the community will come back with great ideas. That would be my thoughts.
That is fantastic. And if I may add to that, I want to say 4 things that I used to call the new value proposition for HR, which is not new anymore. I mean, it's something that we should be doing right now. And it is 4 things. Number 1, it is putting people first. If you want to be seen not only as a disruptive function, as an innovative function, but as a function that is really for the people, you got to put people first. And that means supporting your leaders and supporting your people in the best way and the most human way possible. So that's number 1. The second thing is aligning what you do with the business. I don't know, Chris, if you or Anna, if you have seen this, but it's mind blowing to me that we talk about all these very high level concepts. But when we ask people in HR, do you know what your business goals are? Do you know what your priorities are? 80% of them kind of hesitate to say what they are. So if we can't go to that very basic of understanding of what our organization is about, how are we going to be able to help them, support them if we don't even know where they're going? So number 1, putting people first. Number 2, it is aligning all that we do with the business and with the support of the longevity of that business. The third thing is, and this is a little bit of a circle, I'm circling back, is being agile and innovative. HR for a long time has been a very stale function. And if we remain in the core functionality of HR, meaning hiring, firing, paying, and enforcing compliance, we will continue to be a stale function. When people ask me, what is the first thing that you recommend HR practitioners and leaders to do to remain relevant? My answer is always, always, always the same. It is learn non-HR stuff, because the world of work today and life is way more than what we had traditionally done in the world of HR. You gotta learn design thinking, you gotta learn digital transformation, you gotta learn technology, agility. So be agile and innovative. And the fourth thing of these 4 elements of what I used to call the new value proposition of HR is leveraging on technology. Technology should be the last element, because you gotta start first by putting people first, understanding your operation, becoming more agile and innovative in your processes, and then leveraging on technology. So in my view, and I have hundreds of conversations like this one every week, I would suggest start there to become more innovative and more disruptive as an organization or as a HR function, if you will. Anna, do you want to add anything to that? And I'm gonna try to get another question.
Yeah. Because you've been talking on a very high note on what is the role of HR, I would like to bring that discussion a little bit to the ground level. Okay. From my perspective, the HR for the certain moment represent the face of the company, and it should be the human face. And we need to understand that in the time of distress, HR is the front line who is not now hiring, but firing. Okay. Who is cutting the wages, cutting the salary, and everybody understands that. But they need to be like a security buffer between the management and the employee, because it is up to them to make this hard decision a little bit softer and be understanding. Simple reason being because we need to understand that plenty of employees now are in kind of a hostage situation. I can't find job elsewhere. Right? For example, in the UAE now, no visas will be issued. So which means till the visas process will be defrosted, nobody can look for another employer. So which means people, they agree on the working conditions now, but the first moment they will be able to leave because the company was treating them in these difficult times bad, and they felt like oppressed, and they felt like in a hostage situation, they will go. And the companies, they need to understand that everybody has a certain level of pride that cannot be translated to any other thing. And certain things cannot be therefore asked at snapping finger level, that it needs to be now. It needs to be done for tomorrow, for yesterday, right? Everybody has a limit. Yeah. We need to be human beings to one another. Okay, maybe you are a manager and maybe you are single or you are already divorced, but hello, Your employees, they have spouses, they have kids, they are doing homeschooling, they are juggling, and they are multitasking and God knows how, and they are handling the tragedies. Their beloved ones are losing their life. Hey, people will not forget that. So I think that I found one good picture that was taking, let's say it was like an infographics, that was combining the research by Hayes, what people would like to have at the workplace, offered as a workplace benefits, and what is being given to them. And that showed the huge discrepancy that, for example, people would like to have a longer leave, longer than 28 days. 28 days, it's not a rocket science. It's only a matter of few extra days apart from what is being given. But that will be a decisive factor whether I will stay with the company or not. For example, people, they wanted to have a health insurance of a better quality, especially now it is super important. People now understand that I need to have it better than it used to be before. They are going to look for different factors. Are you going to be appealing for your new employees? Are you going to look for the talent? Now, there is a research done by CIPD. What people were looking for and what was available. What was available in 12% among the people who have been researched, flexi time and working from home 9% versus what people wanted. 35% wanted flexible time and working from home 30%.
It's just ridiculous that we knew that from before and we didn't do much.
Yeah, reduced hours, it was 35%. How many people wanted to do it? 13 only. So we need to understand that we need to really listen to people. What will be appealing? How many people they've been talking? I really want to work from home, but we didn't trust our employees. Now you know that they are working. You don't need to follow up with them. They are doing their job and they are doing it great. Because there is a commitment from their end. And it's a mutual benefit. Start trusting your employees. This is what I would call.
And that's exactly what I mean by putting people first. And one thing that I do want to say is this is not an easy time, and I'm going to circle back to something that I said at the beginning, but from a different angle. This is not a simple time for anybody, and it is not simple for business leaders who are making very, very tough decisions these days. And while many organizations are trying to make the tough decision to lay people off or to fire them or to furlough them. And that's like the last strategy. Some of them are doing that. But there's a difference between doing it with love and doing it with inhumanity, if you will. There are two cases in point, Airbnb and Uber. Airbnb, a couple of weeks ago, they announced the laying off or the firing of 25% of their workforce. If you read the letter of Brian Chesky, that is a manifesto of love, that is a manifesto of empathy, that is a manifesto of humanity, of pain that he was personally feeling for the decision that they have to make in order to keep the organization going for the customers and for the 75% of the people who remained in the company. Now, Uber, I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago, they fired, I think it was something like 3,000 employees on a Zoom call. No benefits, no consideration. It was a very inhuman way to do things. So you got a choice right now. We understand that, and it may not have anything to do directly with disruptive innovation, which is the main topic of today, but it has to do a lot with the underlying principle of all life, which is being human and being a good human leader. So we know that you got to make tough choices, but you got to decide whether you make those tough choices with love or you make them being unhuman. One thing that I want to say is, like Anna said before, you will be remembered for either choice. Brian Chesky will be remembered as an incredible leader. I have, my hats off to him for the way he's addressing this situation. And the leaders of companies that are not doing the right thing, they will also be remembered for the way they are doing things and making decisions. So we got to wrap up this conversation. Any very briefly last thoughts, Chris, Anna? This has been a great conversation, connecting so many dots about disruptive innovation, collaboration, radically open-mindedness, being human, which is the underlying principle of all these things that we're talking about. Chris, Anna, any last thoughts here?
The essence of humanity is all about love. And here's the science behind it. Each one of us biologically are hardwired to show compassion and love. It's not some airy-fairy thing coming out of romantic novels and candlelight dinners. Each one of us are endowed with a set of neurons called mirror neurons. And these mirror neurons are the ones that actually help us to empathize, to show compassion, and to show love. So if you just trigger those processes and just start becoming more compassionate, more loving, and more endearing to our near and dear ones, even the most difficult circumstances can be solved. I've just got another radical idea, and I'll end with this. While we are forced to take the choice of letting people go, whether it's an Airbnb or an Uber, there's another interesting way of looking at that. Is there a way we can engage them in a very innovative way where it's beneficial for the company, beneficial for the people who have been forced to let go? And are there innovative ways by which we can tap into their wisdom more, collaboratively, and look at interesting ways of seeing it? Many of these are knee-jerk panic reactions. Rather than do that, is there a better way to look at it? Would be my thought for the day, because innovation pervades all functions, including HR. And love is that one glue that can connect us together as humanity, and it's embedded biologically by Almighty God into each one of us.
Love it. By the way, I have my notes here from our first chat, and I got the word there, love.
Absolutely.
So I love that there's a consistent theme going on here about love. Anna, do you want to add any last thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I would like to recall a very well-known pyramid of a hierarchy of the needs by Maslow. We need to understand that suddenly in that pyramid we have dropped down a little bit, right? Because it's not about the self-actualization. It's not about esteem. What Professor just said, it is love and belonging. But for some of the people, we are even lower. And these are the two basic needs, the complete basic one. These are the physiological needs, which are not being fulfilled for many, which is super sad. And at the same time, the safety needs. So first of all, especially good leaders should take care after these two, because no people will work well and they will be willing to cherish the moment and become innovative if you are not going to fulfill these basic needs. So Maslow rightly said, first fulfill these two and then only build on. And when we reach that level of love and belonging, okay, let me come back to the Bible. Love your neighbor like yourself. And I think that's the easiest commandment we can give to one another. Yeah. Because if you treat people the way you would like to be treated, they will give you back. They will smile back. There is like reciprocity. You are going to help one another. And coming back to what I said before, people will not forget how you behave in this time of distress. Have you showed the human face or you've been a tyrant? Yeah. Whether they will stay with you or will they move on and they will try to escape. And one more, bringing what I said before, remember, people are not leaving companies. People are leaving managers and leaders. But of course, if they are leaving so-called leaders, they have not been leaders, they have been bosses, which is significant difference.
Yeah. Well, Chris, Anna, thank you so much for another fascinating conversation.